Welcome to the Learning Experience Ops Show, where we talk about making learning better that's future ready. I'm Jason Gorman, the founder and CEO of Jackrabbit Learning Experience. Joining me today are Anand Shekhar and Ram Iyer, the co-founders of ClaraLearn, a workforce intelligence platform. Anand spent 15 years building enterprise platforms at companies like Deloitte and Iyer before starting ClaraLearn with Ram, whose career includes organizations such as Samsung and Reliance Industries Limited, where he led the design and deployment of AI and machine learning solutions focused on streamlining operations, enhancing decision-making, and aligning seamlessly with strategic business goals. I'm talking with them today because their thesis for ClaraLearn runs a little bit against the grain of the field for learning professionals. The global talent crisis, they say, is not a skills shortage. Professionals are now navigating a system that doesn't help them see who they are, where they thrive, or how to hold on to what they learn. And without that, critical thinking has nothing to stand on. ClaraLearn is what they are making right now to work on closing that gap. Welcome to the show, Anand and Ram.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah.
All right, let's just jump into our lightning round questions. This one, I guess, is for you, Anand. What is the 30-second elevator pitch about what you do at ClaraLearn?
Nice. I'll try to keep it 30 seconds. So we basically envision a world, right? A world where regardless of the market disruption, regardless of the AI wave, regardless of the layoffs, a professional who has realized their human potential can thrive, right? In order to do that, we are building ClaraLearn, and ClaraLearn empowers educational institutions, enterprises, workforce boards, government to be able to help these professionals discover their human potential, explore where they thrive, and help them retain what they learn. So it's like a end-to-end cycle that focuses on that human professional, human personal, the professional, and their growth. So our motto is like grow deliberately.
All right, and the next couple questions are really for both of you. So, Ram, we'll go to you first. What do you love the most about your work?
I think the learning experience that I'm having of doing something on my own. I think for far too many years working for someone, taking instructions. I still do take instructions from Anand and the other people that I work with, but the journey has been fantastic. It's been a great learning. Moving on from technical to other roles like sales, business development, it's very interesting, and I'm kind of happy that it has come out very organically for me as well. But I'm still learning.
Yeah, mine has been like similar to Ram, like born and brought up in various different cultures and countries, and I have grown a period of time. And right now, the skill that I'm developing and trying to focus on is learning how to learn, right? And I think it's so powerful and like sort of elevating and loving it.
Wonderful. And we'll stay with you, Anand. What moment inspired you to do this?
So I think both of us come from the data science and technology background. I personally also always wanted to start a business venture someday. Luckily, I met Ram, who's also my cousin brother, the most humble person I have met as such. And when we started talking about like our life, what we want to do, and how do we put our expertise through various different sectors that we have worked on, and where the AI field is going right now, we felt that we can contribute to this domain. And it's huge. It's a difficult problem to solve. And we are here to solve that difficult problem.
Same thing, like with Anand, our entire kind of motive behind it was professionals are, kind of facing this challenge today that there's a lot of confusion. Like, how do we start? There are plethora of courses available, but where does an individual start professionally in terms of upskilling? So that's a problem that we faced, and we saw our colleagues, peers face as well. That's what got into, for us to get into ClaraLearn, where we thought the level of personalization is missing today in the learning world.
And let's kind of look at the flip side, perhaps, of inspiration, which is anxiety. What are you most anxious about for the future?
So anxious, like I would say in a positive way, is is AI, what it can, kind of do, the efficiency that it can bring about. And my suggestion to a lot of professionals is don't take the anxiety in a negative way, but look at it as an opportunity for you to thrive and grow. Because if AI is, kind of curtailing certain skills, at the same point of time, it is going to open up new skills as well. So upskilling should be on top of everyone's head.
And curious about your anxiety too for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot about the future. Nobody can predict the future, right? So if I say something that this is going to happen, it's always an estimated guess. But and it also ties to what we are trying to do. ClaraLearn is basically, the Clara stands for clarity in learning, and we want to provide clarity as a service. What I'm anxious about the future is like, it's going at a very rapid pace where it becomes difficult to like sit down and think, where is it going? So that it's too complex. So that's the part. And I'm more anxious about the socio-economic factors that these transformations brings in. So it trickles down to various levels, and it's important how enterprises, how institutions, how a government all come together to be able to reduce the anxiety for professionals like us across the board.
All right. Last lightning round question doesn't have to relate to work, but it can if you want to. It could be anything. What is a skill you're trying to pick up now? We'll start with you, Anand.
Yeah. So I think I sort of touched upon that, the learning to learn skill. So how do I be more human, right? How do I move out of the autopilot and bring up my awareness? How do I be more conscious about what I'm doing, right? How do I engage with AI or systems and use my critical thinking? How do I sharpen that critical thinking is what I'm more focused on.
That's great. And Ram?
For me, it's, I think, business development and sales. I think I've always been away from that field, but I'm just loving it right now. Like learning about it, meeting professionals in that industry to kind of gain more skills in that. I mean, technical skills is one thing, but the communication, the interaction that you have with various individuals, various professionals, it's exciting, I would say. So that is one thing I'm working on right now.
That's wonderful. And actually, the learning how to learn thing, I'll take a second here because past guest by the name of Jeff Bergen wrote a terrific book called Already Smarter, Simple Strategies for Effective Learning. It's a terrific book, like a manual for your own brain about how to learn effectively. So for anybody listening, go read that book. It's really good. And so relevant, right? I think that this premium on learning is quite high now. I mean, it's always been high. We've always needed it, but I would say it's accelerating, which I think is a useful frame for this whole conversation. So next question, you mentioned that you're cousins, and you spent years in enterprise data and platform work, AI and machine learning, as I mentioned before, at different organizations. But I'm curious, what was that conversation like that pulled you both towards this problem and wanting to solve it?
Yeah. Do you want to take that? Or?
Yeah, so I think this was somewhere around last year, I guess. Anand, I think I think Anand moved to Canada recently, like 2 years back, and then he was in US and then in India. And I was in Canada for the last 8 years. So, I mean, we've been in touch, we've been working, and then we were always kind of exchanging ideas or talking about each other's work. And one thing that we both noticed was, AI, kind of started disrupting a lot, like early last year as well. And both of us were kind of into that field. We felt a lot of professionals, a lot of colleagues, we also reached out to us. How do we get started with this? Or how do I begin? What is there? Like, what courses do I need to do? How can I upskill? And at that point of time, I was learning AI through a lot of courses, through a lot of channels as well. And for me, it was kind of, I won't say easy, but it was still something that I could relate to because I did come from that field and I was able to grasp it faster. But I saw a lot of my peers, my colleagues, and even Anand also, spoke about it, that is struggling. So there was no level of personalization which we felt. And Anand also had this, idea of how we can, build something where we can get that level of personalization for professionals who want to learn. And Anand will speak about it a lot more, but he kind of touched upon this concept of retention of knowledge, because at that point of time, both of us, or almost all of us, were just consuming knowledge, consuming. But how much of it were we actually kind of retaining? How much of it we were actually applying in our day to day kind of professional career as well? So that we felt was lacking. And again, this is our biasness towards technology, because we both come from that background. And we thought that with AI, we started thinking a little bit, because I did work with other sectors apart from technology, and I felt that this could actually be used, this personalization can be brought about for other sectors apart from technology. So that's where we got talking and then started building on a roadmap, what we need to have, etc. I'll kind of pass it on to Anand to had his thoughts as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ram. I mean, you covered really well. Basically, I mean, from my perspective, I've been obsessed with clarity, right? I have always felt that to begin anything, you need clarity, and clarity sort of helps you then get into direction. So I have always been I'll write down what I want to do, how my future would look like 5 years down, and then keep cross-checking, okay, have I reached there? Where do I go? And so on, right? So clarity was one. Second aspect was, as Ram mentioned, it was the retention of information, right? So there are so many videos coming in. When we were also talking internally through peers and colleagues, it was more about jumping on like, oh, I want to do AI or I want to do this, but we are doing just because someone else is doing. It's like more of a FOMO, and it's more of an anxiety, right? But my thought process was like, instead of like we going and doing something just for the sake of doing, why not see whether it's even required, right? Do I even need to learn that? Maybe you can do something without the AI. There is other route that you can take, right? So that's where it sort of came out like, okay, how do you first explore what you want to really do? Then if I actually want to learn something, how do I retain that knowledge? Because there's so much of content out there. So that aspect got us talking, and then we built a prototype. We spoke to a lot of people, and sort of showcased that how would it be if you have something like this, right? So we got those motivation, encouragement. We met Andrea, like, who has been like a great cheerleader for us. You have spoken to her, and talking to such beautiful people who sort of encouraged us to go in this direction. We felt, yes, I think this is what we want to do.
In past conversations we've had, you have said that value in the labor market has always been the function of two things: skills and scarcity. And now you're saying that AI is collapsing both of these things at the same time. So I'm wondering if you could walk us through what this means. What do you mean by skills and scarcity, and how is it collapsing?
Absolutely. So, and this is coming from, like, I actually sat down and was like, took a weekend to think through this, right? Where what does even a wage mean, right? Like if I earn, let's say I'm a digital applications manager in, let's say, Canada or somewhere else. Let's say I earn 80K to 100K. Like, who decides that 80K, and what decides that 80K or 100K, right? So if you actually try to break it down at a very high level, it will boil down to two aspects. One is, what skills does this human have that would add value to the work that we are doing? And two is the scarcity. Like, how many people out there have the same skill set, right? And that will dictate, it's end of the day, demand and supply, right? That would dictate the wage that you have, right? So that's one. The other aspect that we want to look at is, now, if you look at the modern AI and the agents, AI agents that we have, AI system, the way we are building that in the sense the community is building it, is AI can now acquire those certain skills, right? So these are, and when I say these skills, I'm specifically talking about task-based skills. So there's a difference where there are certain task-based skills and there's an outcome-based. So I'm talking about task-based skills where it can learn those skills and produce a certain outcome for that specific task, right? So when you do it, you are basically now elevating the scale. Instead of, let's say, there were like 10 people who had a particular skill set to do a particular job, Now you could have AI that democratizes that, and instead of 10, now you have 1,000, right? So automatically the wage goes down. So in this era where you have the scarcity in a way getting impacted, and the other side, you have the skills getting acquired, how do you elevate yourself? I'll rather look at it as an opportunity, right? So the opportunity over here is what is core to a human being, and the core is the consciousness. The core is your cognitive capability, and the core is your ability to critically think. AI can give you 10 different options, and that 10 different options can go into 10 different directions, right? But now what we have unique to us is like, how do you decide which one is the best way forward for us? So those are the skills, and that's where domain knowledge comes in. That's where learning comes in. That's where critical thinking comes in. And that's where the ability to be able to like practice that comes in.
It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, although, critical thinking, domain knowledge, critical thinking in particular is certainly a skill, and a certain kind of durable skill. And I'm curious, what's the rubric we should be using to kind of parse out the kinds of skills that not only remain relevant, but become more relevant, right? Critical thinking is one of those things. And other skills like recording a podcast, I don't know where.
Yeah, absolutely.
It becomes frankly, this platform that we're using makes this process pretty easy. I did a podcast, 10 episodes in the pandemic. Technology was different. It was a lot harder. I had to be more skilled to do it. And as a result, I stopped because it was more work than I could handle. It's a different reality now. AI is actually making this easier. So I don't know. How do we think about skills that will become more important versus skills that will be devalued?
Totally. I can take that and pass it to Ram as well. He can talk more on the scale and the taxonomy as such. But the idea, and that's where our discover comes into play, right? When we say that we need to discover ourselves. So there are things that, so the way I would look at it is like, if even someone doesn't pay me to do a certain job, will I do that? Right? So that's my core strength. Like, regardless of you telling me or not, I'll go into that space. I'll spiral into that space. And that's where we first want to identify, like, where do I fit in? And that is adding value to another human being with that skill. So that's one. Second aspect, and when you go through that, you will find various different skill set that is associated to that, and you then start acquiring those, right? That's one. Second aspect is like, we be more cognizant of what's going out there in the market, which require a certain skill, and then go behind acquiring those skills one by one, which is aligned to your core strengths, right? In the sense, core value for that matter, right? So that's the part. And here's the other tricky thing, right? These skills are going to, like, change is inevitable. It has always been inevitable, and it's going to spiral now as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do you be more resilient, where if a certain skill sort of gets dropped, how do you go into the other skill set and pick it up? But like, guiding through your fundamentals of what you truly want to do. So that's the part I would sort of comment on.
I mean, that's great. Actually, I was going to ask, the next question was really about, in your model, as I understand it, the first step for somebody in your technology is to build their own professional identity profile to help them understand what they're going to need for the future, to understand their baseline, where they are now, how that compares to the kind of career they are interested for themselves. I kind of want to dig into this professional identity piece. What does it mean to know who you are professionally?
So when we say professional identity, right? So what happens today is, many of us identify as ourselves with title. Let's say I'm VP of infrastructure, I don't know, enterprise. But then what happens if that title goes away, right? We then start to like we start to get the anxiety. We feel, oh, this is going, but that's not true. Like, VP of let's say enterprise is just one title, but behind that, the whole journey that took you to get there is essentially so many acquisitions of various different skills that forms your professional identity. So it's not a word, but it's more like a statement, right? Where I come back to that point where you cannot avoid doing that. That's something that's your professional identity, where you cannot avoid doing. As an example, I cannot avoid doing research. I cannot avoid identifying ideas. I cannot avoid innovating. I cannot avoid talking. So that's the professional identity that one needs to discover. So it's more of a spectrum than a point in that spectrum, is what I would say.
It's like a combination of, one is your skills, like what we see, like products outside. Like if I speak purely from a product perspective, and the identity part is, to be very honest, it's not something new that we are working on. Even LinkedIn has been working on it for quite a while. But unfortunately, how organizations work is they have a contract agreement through resumes today, and it still works that way. So what we feel is, now with AI, resumes might become obsolete over a period of time, because some professionals have gamed the system. They know how to build their resumes, and they can get into certain roles, with those correct wordings, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So how do we go beyond that? So that's where I think identity will play a crucial role over here. So it will be beyond your skills. One, skills will play an important role, but it also your things like your trajectory, like Anand mentioned. How did you get into that role? What are your behavioral aspects that we can understand from your professional identity? What is the nature of your work? Which industries you are well suited for? What's your work style? Like how do you communicate, etc. So these are some aspects that we have kind of, again, speaking about our product, we have neatly kind of built into it, so that it doesn't tell an individual that they are a sales engineer, for example. Like that's just a job profile, but it also tells them what they are beyond a sales engineer.
Yeah, I see. So it's decoupling the knowledge and skills they have from specific titles, presumably because those titles are becoming obsolete really fast, or maybe make no sense, or maybe never did. I mean, I think that this is not a totally new problem. I think that you can have two job titles that are identical, but are totally different jobs in two different organizations.
Yeah.
And that's probably only accelerating. And I think what you're saying is that it is only accelerating. So once a person understands their personal profile, what is their path after that? How do they think about moving forward? How do they move forward once they understand their profile?
So the exploration part, what we have done over here is, there are different ways an individual can grow. Like either they want to advance in their own profile itself, like how do I get to the next level? So even in the system that we have built, we are consciously not running after job titles. We are looking at how you can elevate your skills. Say you are at this proficiency, for example, today. How do I elevate myself to a level up from there to reach to the next level in my own profile? So that's one way of exploring, which is again built around your skills, built around your identity, and how you will match into those roles. What are the other skills? And again, in our system, what we try to do is we try to complement the roles both from a technical as well as soft skill perspective. Because as you elevate, you also need good amount of soft skills. And our skills that we recommend also is very agnostic to any technological or any disruptions. So what happens in a lot of products, what we have seen is they're very reactive to recommending skills. That is, once it has become obsolete, then they make a change and then you are told about it. But since we have an agentic framework, it actually tells you which of these skills are actually going down, which of the skills are coming up. So the exploration part actually helps you identify in your own profile how you can move. The second part is how you can transition into new roles. Like someone from a sales, if they want to move into a product manager role, do they need to start fresh? Do they need to go to Coursera and Udemy, do a boot camp, and only then are they eligible? how can they complement their existing skills and move forward. So that is something we felt that, which actually kind of motivates individuals, right? Rather than, scaring them or creating that anxious situation for them where they feel, oh, I need to start everything right from scratch. I'm not able to understand these things. But what we tell them even the exploration is, even if you want to explore into a new profile, these are the limited skills that you need first to get into a profile, right? So you don't need to do the whole spectrum of skills. This is how you get started, and then you slowly build on that. And the third part is like, even if they want to explore roles within their domain, for example, like it's like if you're in a marketing domain and you just want to do something which is very adjacent to it, so it's like a knowledge graph that we have built around it, the skills, your profiles, your behavioral aspects, and how you actually fit into those roles. That's what we talk about, in terms of exploration.
Obviously, you've thought a lot about skills, learning, careers. Just from a individual personal standpoint, what is the most practical thing, somebody listening to this, what is a practical thing that they can do this week to improve their understanding of where they are right now and understand the gaps between where they are and where they want to go? And not just with your technology, but just in general, with your way of thinking. You've built a kind of mode of thinking. What have you learned about how somebody moves from current state to a desired future state?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I were that person, what I would do, and I typically do that, is like, I would just sit down and answer this question to myself, where if you're already working, then wherever you're working, would you do the same job if someone doesn't pay you? Yes, there is a survival aspect, and there's an aspect that gives you some kind of purpose, as some kind of happiness in a way. So find that part. Would you do? If not, then figure out you would definitely get something that give you that joy, and then go and find what is the market cap. So many a times what happens is, like, people with career do not necessarily, and when I speak to students especially, and I sort of suggest that think of it like a business. Like, you need to see the market cap as well. So let's say you have like immense potential and you have that growth trajectory, but your cap is, let's say, 60K or 70K. You're not going to go above that because that industry never pays beyond that, right?
Yeah.
So after, let's say, 6 years, 7 years, you spending time, then you realize, oh, I like this job, but it doesn't pay me. It doesn't suit me. So you think about it, where do I go? Right? So you might want to think about those aspects. Like, if money is something that matters to you, look at that cap. If that environment, like Ram mentioned, the environment, the work style, because every industry is different, every domain is different, and every domain has a different work style. So look at that work style, study that, and see where do you align. So it's about finding yourself and aligning to that, and then doing that research. So right, so as you do that, then pick and choose that which one you want to go and explore. And also it depends on like what career stage you are in. Like, especially people who are starting their careers between age 20 to 30, exploration is the thing. Like, do mistakes, go here, and then keep moving around. And then it's not that you cannot do beyond that. It definitely can. I have like quit my job and started like business myself. The risk just gets higher, right? So you're open to take risk. So what matters to you is what you want to do. So just to summarize, long story short, write down what truly matters to you, and then do some research on it as to like, what is the market cap, and talk to other people, build network, and so on.
The people who this podcast is made for are learning professionals. So they're responsible for thinking about pathways within a company or within a community or a school, university. They're building learning experiences for people. I think all of us understand in this field that things will change for us. Whatever our jobs have been in the past, they are going to be different in the future. And it feels like this thing that you are really keyed in on around the value of skills and how those are shaping and how to map where you are presently against the future is certainly critical for everybody who is in our field one way or the other. And I know this is not, your backgrounds are different than mine, right? So you came from a technology background, but based on what you've been doing and learning about skills and careers, what do you think the future is for people who listen to this podcast? So if somebody who's in the job of facilitating this for people, what do our future jobs look like, do you think?
Think for us, I think it's a great opportunity for them to be in right now, because like we've been saying, upskilling is no longer an option today. It is mandatory. And it is mandatory across professionals, across all age groups. So I think Anand spoke more about, the 20 to 30, and we would recommend doing the same thing for professionals higher above as well. So today, if you want to make yourself relevant, sorry to be a little bit harsh, you need to upskill, right?
Mhm.
Because otherwise it will be very tough for you to, be in that. And where we see learning providers or learning professionals will play a very key role in this. Because now with AI, the scalability will be very high. So the thing is, the reach would be much more higher. So upskilling more professionals would become less expensive, more easier to do that. And where we feel that, learning professionals will have a crucial role to play here is making learning as an infrastructure.
Mm.
It cannot be a cost segment. So that's where we feel that that drive needs to come. Enterprises need to build an appetite for learning. It has to be part of their infrastructure. And this will come from learning professionals who have been in this field and who kind of make that next move towards the enterprises of building it as an infrastructure. Because there will be skills which will come and go, but how do you kind of democratize or pass on that information to professionals? It's very, very important. And I think that's where learning professionals will play an important role. Because every time generic courses or generic content may not always work, we need experts, we need personalization so that they can, kind of actually apply it into their day-to-day kind of work as.
Something that I have been thinking about a lot lately is that the work from, K-12 environments to higher ed to career prep and professional development while you're in a job have been sort of similar in many ways for a long time, because it's been about creating courses or educational experiences, right, that are interventions, right? It's content. I wonder if there is a divergence that's happening. So when you're talking about infrastructure, that sounds to me like, with other people that I've talked to on this show, like thinking of Donald Taylor in particular, he names 3 potential models for learning and development. None of those include creating content. They are all about building a certain kind of infrastructure. However, in a place like K-12 or higher education, still need courses, but building the infrastructure might mean something else, right? It can't just be little events that help a person learn the basics of math or help them learn economics from the ground up, right? You need a lot of content. It needs to be structured. But I do believe the infrastructure shifts. I think it's just an interesting crossroads. This notion of what we do as providing infrastructure is interesting because it's more systems based. It's broader. It's less episodic, and it's less about creating content. It's more about creating an environment for people to learn. It's very, very interesting. So I have one last question. This is from the last person I interviewed, and it is actually quite a good question for you, particularly. I'd actually, at the end of this podcast, I'll ask you a question to share with my next guest. This one I think is quite suitable for you. This comes from Heather Zhu, and she asks, if all of our worst fears about AI come true and all of your current work goes away, how would you find your value and reinvent yourself? And so this is actually a question for you personally, which I would love to hear that answer, but I would also love to hear how you think about that in the context of your work.
I think it sort of ties so closely to what ClaraLearn believes in. It's about realizing the human potential, right? So our vision is like to turn human potential into economic mobility, right? And the way you can do that is by realizing that human potential, and it's only you who can realize that. There would be platforms, there would be people who can provide all of these, but only I can realize what my human potential is and how can I sort of skyrocket that, right? So, and that once we realize that potential, then we don't have to necessarily worry about what there would be disruptions happening. I'm a believer of entropy. Entropy, when there is chaos, there is also innovation that's happening, right? So it's looking at opportunities at those areas, right? So, and if we are able to build a self which is curious, build a self which is like more critically thinking about like, how do I acquire this knowledge? How do you're more knowledge seeking, then automatically, regardless of that disruption, regardless of the AI wave, regardless of the layoff, you're building a self that has human. Will it be very easy? Of course not. It will be difficult, but it will give you that strength to go beyond. And you know what? Maybe if you would have gone through a normal trajectory, you might not have landed somewhere big, but going through this, you might land up. So the long answer is knowing that human potential.
Good. I'm curious to hear what you think, Ram.
So my thing is, like I've been saying, I think it's an opportunity rather than being anxious. I feel that, and I understand like a lot of professionals, can be bounded by, financial pressure or other aspects where they might not have the risk appetite. It's not. It's easy for us to say that a professional can get into an entrepreneurial role like me and Anand have done, but there is an immense amount of risk also behind it. So although it is there, but I think this is the right time for, like Anand said, like realizing your human potential, taking this as an opportunity to grow. And one thing that I can say is that you're not the only one going through this grind. The whole world is going through that. So rather than, kind of inflicting some kind of on yourself, rather kind of embrace it, talk to people around you and see how you can, kind of grow from there. Yes, there are roles which are going to get obsolete. It's inevitable, but I feel there are a lot more roles which will open up. So if there are, say, Anand and me talk about it a lot, I feel that if there are 100 enterprises today, AI is actually going to help individuals where it can scale up to 1,000 enterprises tomorrow. So you could have professionals who have always been working in corporate can start up something on their own. So it's a great opportunity. I'm not advising everyone to go the entrepreneurial journey.
Sure.
But kind of like you need to embrace new skills. I think we've seen this disruption from the industrial revolution to different technology revolution, even in the last 2 or 3 decades. And people have always kind of adopted. But I think one more aspect that I want to add is just because someone is falling behind, and then the society needs to take certain steps as well, which we both of us strongly feel that government, society needs to step in over here, where people are empowered, people have, kind of are able to, acquire these skills. It doesn't put too much of pressure on them as well. So as a society, even as an AI society, as a government, I think we all need to do something collaboratively so that, individuals feel comfortable, even while acquiring these.
Really appreciate this conversation. It's nice to end on a hopeful note. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining Ram and Anand. It's really been nice talking to you.
Thank you for having us, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
That's a wrap on this episode. If you found this useful, please subscribe and share it with a fellow learning professional. It's the best way to help others find the show. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we have 2 ways to do it. We have a monthly online AI forum for learning professionals. We also have a Slack community by the same name, totally dedicated to learning professionals. These are great places to meet more people who do the kinds of things that we do and make sense of the world that we're in and what's coming together. You can find the links in the show notes, or you can reach out directly to us at podcast at jackrabbit.lx.com. See you next time.